Hello and welcome to the Spiritual Solopreneur podcast. Today, my guest is Anne Dunnett. Anne is a creative entrepreneur, designer, writer, and haiku poet. Anne's haiku poetry has been won honorable mentions and has been critiqued and reviewed by some of the most prominent haiku poets in the US and Canada. She has found purpose and passion in showing others how to embrace a seasonal living lifestyle, tap into their creativity, unlock their spirituality, and learn to live in the present moment. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming. I'm excited
Mm.
to talk to you about haiku and other things.
Mhm.
So let's start there. I think most people know what haiku poetry or have heard the term haiku poetry, but don't know too much about it. What is it and where does it come from?
Yeah, it's always it's always an interesting question and challenging to answer sometimes. It is originated in Japan, so it's a Japanese form of poetry. And as you mentioned, that most people I find that they know a little bit about what haiku is, but what's interesting is that there's a lot of misconceptions about what it actually is, and it a lot of people may have learned about it in elementary school or school, and that it's based on it's a poem of 3 lines that has a syllable count of 17 syllables. So the first line's 5 syllables, the middle line is 7 syllables, and then the last line is 5 syllables again. And the focus is always about counting syllables and making sure that it stays within that format. So, this is where I'm going to tell you that that's not really what it's all about. And I was first introduced to haiku in elementary school, like a lot of people. And my grandmother wrote haiku as well. And she helped me with my school assignment to write my first haiku. And then I was going with this syllable count. And it wasn't until years later when I became a lot more interested in writing haiku. And I ended up joining the Vancouver Haiku group. And that was when they basically just said, don't count syllables. It's not about counting syllables. And that the essence at the core of what haiku is, if like, I'm going to back it up again. You can still write haiku following the 575 syllable count. And a lot of poets, haiku poets, actually do follow that format. I just started to learn from a lot of the more English language, I guess, modern haiku poets, where they kind of scrapped that format and went a little free form and followed more of the Japanese ways of being in the world, which is the essence of haiku is actually about being in the moment. And that I think is the biggest piece about it, because it's written in the present tense, and that part of it is what gives you what they call a haiku moment or aha moment. So that's one of the first things, written in the present tense, and it is a seasonal form of poetry. And again, going back into more of the Japanese kind of cultures around how like when the Japanese kind of haiku masters, this is like 14th, 15th century in Japan, they're very passionate about connecting to nature in the Japanese culture. So they would want to incorporate the seasons into their haiku. And that also is a way of giving it a time and a place. Because if you choose words that are in season, like, we're in winter right now. So you would, talk about snow, or, different kind of words that are coldish, but not just about the cold. But they have actually seasonal word lists that you can refer to maybe, if you want a little bit of inspiration to write haiku. So it's got a seasonal word is called a kigo. So they would include a seasonal word as well as the senses. So, and when you're tapping into your senses, that also takes you into the moment. So often you would hear the sound of water or the taste of chocolate or the color of a peach, like all of those things would make you feel like you're actually there. Does that make sense?
Gotcha, gotcha, yeah. So there is some structure with it, though. I mean, it's still 3 lines, otherwise it's
Yeah.
not gonna be called a haiku poem, right?
Okay, well, this is another thing that kind of blew that out the window when I connected with these people. I would say the majority definitely is 3 lines, but I've actually seen some haiku in print in haiku anthologies. That's 1 line. I've
Oh,
seen some in 2 lines, but the majority of them is definitely in 3 lines. And the other part of haiku is that it creates images. So think of it as a painting or a photograph. So it's really putting images into words. And so when the per- when you're hearing a haiku or reading a haiku, it takes you into the moment, but it also is giving you visuals, and it also has 2 parts. So there will be two images. So it would say, okay, let's say cherry moon. I'm thinking about spring because I'm working on my spring content right now. I'm ready for spring. So if you say cherry moon, then you would have a vision of a spring moon or, a full moon in the spring season, because cherry blossom, cherries represent the spring
mm,
season.
mhm.
And then I'm gonna spontaneously just rattle off maybe 2 lines, but there's a break. So you'd say one image would be cherry moon, and then you would say like, sitting on the beach, surrounded by shells, or I don't know,
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
making it up
whatever.
as I go. Um, but the second and the third line flow, they're connected and they flow a little bit better. They
Oh,
flow together. So I don't know if you've listened to any of my little videos. I do, a once a week video, and I will read the haiku twice. And there's always a little bit of a pause after the first line, and then I'll go into the next 2 lines, and they flow.
gotcha. So it's not really the structure, it's the content and the sound
The
of it when
senses,
you're
not so
reading it?
much not so much the sound, but more of the feeling,
The feeling.
and more, it's it's an experiential form of poetry. Like it doesn't tell you how to feel. It shows you how to feel, or you feel the words, if that's making any
It
sense.
shows you a way to feel, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
So it's and I think that is partly why a lot of people don't understand haiku, because there's some profound simplicity about it that I think a lot of people are kind of scratching their heads, kind of going, well, I don't really get this. What is it? And I remember years ago, I used to, when I was doing graphic design full time, I used to do little business cards with different little haikus on them and stuff. And I always remember giving them to this woman at a networking event, and she looked at it and she read it, and she looked at me and she was really confused. And she's like, "Well, what do I do with this?" And I said, "You don't do anything." And that's what it is that it doesn't tell you to do anything like like a quote or an affirmation or something like that. Like I believe that we have been so conditioned to be told to do something or to do something. And with haiku, it's much the same as looking at a flower and just really looking at it, instead of going, oh yeah, there's a flower, but looking at it, looking at the detail of it, looking at the essence of it, and being curious about about the nature of how it bloomed and the process that it goes through.
Mhm.
So that's where my passion about haiku comes in, is because I think that we need to get back to that place that connects us with nature and connects us to being connected with ourselves, and
Yeah.
to slow down and actually really experience the world.
I'm slowing down right now just hearing you talk about it. It sounds
And when I
very
explain when I explain this, when I explain haiku to people, then they're like, it gets a little bit clearer about, oh, okay. It's not just um fluffy words.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So you mentioned that it creates images and you do graphic art. So is that how you got into graphic arts? Was the whole
Not really. No.
yeah, okay.
As I mentioned, I wrote my first haiku when I was 10.
Right.
And then I just never thought about it again. It wasn't something where I was like, oh, I want to be a haiku poet when I grow up. I wanted to do something that was going to be really, really a money maker and practical. And you're going to
Right.
laugh at this. I wanted to become an artist.
Yeah, okay.
So off I went to art school, and I quickly realized that I didn't really want to be a fine artist, and I switched over and went into graphic design because that's a little bit more of that practical, which still hasn't really been, it's been a bumpy road, but it's always, I think it's because my heart and my passion is with the haiku. But I did go to art school, and then I graduated. I went to Capilano College and was 21 when got out and went into the big scary world. And I realized that I didn't love it, and I really wanted to do something that was a little bit more creative, kind of for my soul. And I ended up going into a craft fair, and I asked my grandmother if I could use her haiku. And I started making little art cards out of her poetry. And that was really how it evolved from that. And people seemed to really like them. I continued doing craft fairs, and then I was freelancing. It was a really roller coaster. I mean, it was in my 20s, it's feast or famine life back then.
Yeah, for sure.
um, and then I didn't I just got really into paper making and Japanese art, as far as bookbinding and making journals and selling things. Then I got into doing collage work, and then it was almost 18 years ago, I can't believe it, when I started reading more about Zen lifestyles, and started meditating, going to yoga, taking care of myself better. And I ended up buying this massive book on Japanese culture, and it had a section in it about haiku. And it just intuitively spoke to me, and I just decided to start exploring it, and I started writing a little bit. And that was around the same time where I ended up connecting with the Vancouver haiku group, and that was when I started everyday haiku, and I started writing my own poetry, which was pretty crappy back then. um, and it's taken me a long time to really figure it out, because it's 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 almost like you have to actually internally come to a place where you do feel that stillness within, where you're able to hold it and to live it, to be able to write haiku. And I explored for a brief period of time about 6 or 7 years ago, teaching people how to write haiku. And I just found that, well, for one thing, I don't have an English background in teaching people, grammar and writing, and I'm still working on my own, um, writing with it. So I realized that it didn't speak to me as much about teaching people how to write haiku, but I realized that what people need to learn is what it is and how to actually read it. in a
Mhm.
way that they feel it and they understand it before they can even think about writing it. Because I would have people in there trying to write it and they were getting frustrated because it takes you out of your head. It takes you out of your thinking mind, and it puts you more into your body and into your heart with your feelings. And
Yeah.
if people are in that mindset of their mind is trying too hard and trying to think too much, they're gonna have a really hard time trying to write haiku.
Exactly, and it's very meditative, I'm gathering,
Mhm.
reading it anyway, maybe not writing it if you're getting frustrated, but,
Well,
uh
that's for people who aren't in that mindset.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I
yeah.
mean, I'm a would-be meditator, I one of these days, but I have had spurts of time when I've meditated,
Mm.
and it's extremely helpful. And I also sort of I tell myself that my meditation is my work. Sometimes I get, when I'm creating something, creating anything, whether it's a
Oh,
design, a web design, or
yeah.
a speech for Toastmasters or whatever it is,
Mm.
I'm getting out of my head. Is that the type of meditation, or do you actually sit down and meditate as well?
I do a little bit of both. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I'm very inconsistent with my meditation. It just depends. For me, going for a walk can be a form of meditation. So it's. I think it's just being in a place of quiet and like a lot. I think a lot of like there's so many different ways to meditate too. Like you could do a guided meditation. Sometimes I do a guided meditation. Sometimes I just sit for 15 minutes with complete silence. And I don't think that you can ever stop your mind from thinking. Like I think that you can just slow it down, and I just let things, thoughts come and go without trying. It's just allowing things to be there.
Exactly, and I think that's the key to that is not judging the
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
let them come and let them go, and
And sometimes
you're
weird thoughts come up, and it's like, "Where did that come from? That was really weird," but, and then just it's just,
those can
it's
be very valuable that
Mhm. Well, and sometimes, I hear people say, "Oh, I got to download," and sometimes that's
Mhm,
you get these
mhm,
ideas and these
mhm,
thoughts about, "Oh, I should do
mhm.
this," and I get that happen. There it's a little random for me, I would say. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. I'm the same. I'm gonna ask you something, you're probably gonna laugh because it's silly, but, uh
Nothing's no.
you're talking about, uh, the seasonal aspect and, living, seasonal living type of lifestyle. So, what about if that's great for here, you and I are in BC, Canada. We got
Mhm.
seasons. What
Yeah.
what if you live in South America or even San Diego where it's the same weather all day, every day? Oh, does that matter? Can you still take
Well,
advantage of this?
it's interesting that you brought that up because I have this seasonal living membership that I've just launched
Yeah.
in December, and a woman who I connected through networking a couple of years ago. She's in Florida, and she's been getting my newsletter since we connected, and she loves it. And I had a call with her a couple of weeks ago, and she's joined the circle. And I said that to her. I said, "Well, Lisa, you're in Florida. You're not really experiencing seasons, or do you?" I asked her, and she goes, "Yeah, fall here is maybe a week."
Yeah.
um, but what she because I said I'm talking about snow a lot right now, and she loves it. Like she goes, she goes, "I wish I could live in the four seasons." So now she gets to experience four seasons in a different way. Um and it's not just about the weather. each season actually holds a different type of energy. So they're also the seasons are connected to the moon cycles that we
Right.
go through in a month. So the new moon is connected to the winter season, and the winter season is really about rest and reflection, and that's when we should all be really hibernating like a bear. Slowing down. And it's not about being completely lazy and, lounging around all the time, but it's just tapping into like looking at nature and why do the leaves fall off the trees and why does everything go into stillness
Mm.
and I think if we started to look and question some of these things and tap into those types of energies, that we would be more in harmony with the earth, which I believe is a lot healthier way to live. So
Exactly.
we're slowly starting to shift to spring. I was just outside and I went to the bank and there was a little patch of flowers that were starting to pop up and it was super exciting for
Wow.
me. I was
Wow.
like,
Already.
yeah, yeah, I
Awesome.
know already. And it's cold out.
Yeah, it's still chilly.
But when we start moving into the spring season, that is when we experience a rebirth, like inside of ourselves, like start planting seeds, like what kind of emotional seeds, like not physical seeds, but
Yeah,
really the spring should be the new year. Like New Year's is up and Christmas is even at the wrong time.
I agree.
So with spring is really when we should not so much resolutions because nobody really does those anymore, but
Mhm.
some people might. But
Not me.
spring is the time to set those goals and plant those seeds and look at the future. What do you want over the next year? And a lot of these things are connected to astrology. I'm
Mm.
not like I know a little bit about astrology, but not that much. But the moon cycles are connected to astrology, and so the spring is represents the waxing moon, which is in between the full moon and the new moon, and that's when the spring is about that. Yeah, the rebirth and new beginnings, and it also is connected although those seasons are connected into a 24-hour period. So the spring would be first thing in the morning,
Oh,
summer would be in the afternoon,
okay.
and then fall is early evening, and then winter is when you're sleeping
That
in
makes
the
total
night.
sense.
I know.
Totally
Doesn't
makes
it?
sense. Yes, it does. Fantastic. So it has nothing to do with the weather. You can live anywhere and
Yeah.
experience seasonal
I think
living.
so. You know what? I guess it is just a personal thing. Like some
Yeah,
people, so if somebody's living in Africa, they might not have any interest in tapping into it, North America seasons. Where it gets a little bit tricky is for people who are living like in New Zealand or Australia because their seasons are completely opposite.
right.
So um, that would be a little bit of a challenge. Not there yet
Yeah.
with the author.
So like driving on the other side of the road,
Yeah. So it's basically I would say that this is suited more for people who are living in North America.
Northern
Um,
Hemisphere.
yeah, yeah, Northern
Yeah,
Hemisphere. Really,
exactly. Well, there's plenty of people living in the Northern Hemisphere,
there
so
is. So,
we can reach lots of people with this.
yeah.
Um, you mentioned that you don't teach people to write haiku so much. So, what goes on in your program? Can you give us a little bit of a
Uh-huh.
glimpse?
Mhm. They get one haiku a week, which is a seasonal haiku. So I'm inspiring, I'm hoping, inspiring people to use the haiku as more of a tool or what's the word? I don't want to say reminder, but an inspiration
Mm,
to pause. They've got the haiku. Some haiku might love, some not so much, but it's not even really so much about the haiku, but they have that one haiku for the week. And say if you're stressed or having a horrible morning, or something's happened or whatever, you can use the haiku as almost a way to ground yourself, or to just go, oh, I'm going to just pause. I'm going to look at these words. I'm going to slow down, and I'm going to just, it can calm you down. So
right.
they get one haiku a week. They also get a seasonal journal, which is, again, they get a haiku a week in the journal. And then they have pages for journal writing that they can print out. And it's 100 and something pages. It's like 100, it's about 100 pages,
Which you have created.
which I have designed. Yes,
Yeah.
I've designed the journal. So they get a journal. They get weekly inspiration. So on Monday, it's called Monday Moments, and they get a little video from me. It's about 10 minutes of, you can either listen to the video or watch it or whatever, or read the text. So they get a message, and it's broken into themes, monthly themes. This month is love, because we've got that silly little day coming up.
Yes.
But I've turned it into self love, self care.
Nice.
It's heart based. It's about relationships. It's more of that, and incorporate a little bit of the winter season into it. So December, it was around the holidays. In January, it was about setting those goals and vision boarding, and having a vision for the year. And then this month is about love, and then I'm moving into spring, into March, which will be um talking about a seasonal, shifting seasons. And then we get into the equinox, and then cherry blossoms are going to be for April, because the cherry blossom is a really big symbol in Japan for the spring season. So it's inspiring people to connect with nature. And then I include the moon cycle of the week.
Oh,
And
wow.
on the new moon and the full moon, I put in a little bit of astrology, like the new moon is in the sign of Sagittarius, and this is what that would mean. And the new moon is for setting intentions, and the full moon is more about creativity, and it's about the summer season. And then on Wednesday, they get Wisdom Wednesday, and it's just a little bit of a recap of the haiku. And then they get a download, which could be, last couple weeks ago or last week, I gave them a little wallpaper graphics that they can put on their phone. And then I've done affirmations. I've done 9 tips for staying in the moment during the Christmas holidays. And also, what else have I done? I gave everybody a bunch of recipes that are healthy for heart, for
Nice.
January. And then I also, once a month, do a live with another practitioner. We've done a yoga class that was for the winter solstice, and the yoga instructor is just lovely. And we did it on Zoom, and the yoga class was all around the stillness of winter.
Okay.
And then for spring, she's going to do it again, and that will be more. I don't know if it will be a faster paced class, but it will be around the theme of spring.
More of a
And
spark,
then,
maybe.
what's that?
Maybe more of a spark. A little
More
more
of a
of a
spark, exactly. And then I had another lady that came in and did an Ayurvedic health and wellness presentation for healthy foods for what to eat in the winter season. And then this month, I have an astrologer coming in, and she's going to talk about the moon cycles.
awesome. Oh my gosh, this is so creative
Yes.
and absolutely jam-packed with stuff
Yeah.
for people to expand spirituality and just get into a meditative
Oh, and
state and
I forgot
learn.
one. I forgot one thing. On Friday, I have Freedom Friday, And I do a little recap, but I also give them an activity prompt to do over the weekend, which is connected to the senses, forest bathing, focus on your sense of smell when you go for a walk.
Mm,
You know, leave your phone at home. Just being
yeah.
more mindful of being present. And I think that this repetitive, and it's basically just rinse and repeat every week, but they get a different haiku. There's a different season. It's still different, but there's a similar format where their habits will start to change, and it's very subtle
Yeah.
as long as they do it.
Exactly, exactly. And
Yeah.
they will learn to be uh,
Yes.
more than
Be.
do,
Do.
correct? And
Yeah.
by correct me if I'm wrong, but if you learn to be, that will allow you to do more, actually.
Yeah. I think so. Mhm.
That's my opinion.
I agree because if you're trying to do too much and you're overwhelmed and scattered and your mind is all wired and stuff, you're not able to focus, you're not able to be that productive. And then if you take that
Exactly.
step back and do, yes, be, which is really what haiku is all about, and the seasonal living is about being, and the being and the doing is again what haiku is about, because remember I was saying that we're so used to being told what to do.
Yeah.
And haiku takes you inward,
Mhm.
whereas it's not telling you to do anything. It's I don't know if showing is the right word. It's feeling. It's connecting with that sense of being in the moment, being present to the words.
Exactly. Fantastic. Final words for our audience, words of wisdom, advice.
Next time you go for a walk, be present. Open your eyes, smell the air, taste the air, stick your tongue out, do weird things, hug a tree, touch the grass.
That's that's awesome.
And
Yeah,
it's just really looking at where looking around, and that's really what haiku is about
awesome.
at the core. Yeah.
Fantastic. And how will people find out more about you and be able to sign up for your program?
I have it. I believe you're going to put it in
Certainly.
the
Show notes, whatever they call those things.
the
Description box.
description box below. um, everydayhaiku.ca. I right now my offer for everyday seasonal living is being hosted on a separate site right now. I haven't integrated them, so I've got that at everydayseasonalliving.com.
Okay. We will.
And it's $37 a month. And I think it's worth it.
Awesome. Sounds like it's definitely jam-packed with information and would be a great
But
deal.
it is, but it isn't. It's like most, it's like any kind of membership. It's like what you put in is what you're going to get out of it. So
Exactly. Exactly.
I would say it's more, if you're going to break it down into how much time is required for it a week, it's like 30 minutes a week,
Yeah.
really. If and if you don't have
Or
30,
more if you want, I
well,
guess.
exactly, you could do an hour. Because people are like, oh, I don't have enough time, I'm too busy. So that's why you should do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, to slow down.
To slow
So
down.
mhm.
Well, Anne, thank you so much for introducing this
Mhm.
fabulous resource that people have probably heard of, but going into depth about it and learning how it can really benefit them is a fantastic benefit. So
Mhm.
thank you for that, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been really fun. Yeah, it's been great.
Awesome.
Mhm.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Okay, bye.